Have you been wanting to implement a publicity plan for your business? Most business owners don't need to hire a full-time publicist, but don't know how to go about creating their publicity plan. Welcome to How to Create a Publicity Plan for Your Business workshop, featuring Beth Caldwell. Beth owns her own public relations firm and has been helping small business owners and entrepreneurs with their publicity needs for years. She is the author of the popular book, I Wish I'd Known That, Secrets to Success in Business. She works with her clients to help them develop strategic public relations plans and affordable marketing programs to help them succeed in business. Today's workshop is Creating a Publicity Plan for Your Business. In this program, you'll learn what you need to have in your media kit, the process of media coverage, how to create your own personal media list, and how to create a compelling press release. Get your pens ready and enjoy the workshop. Now, here's Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth Caldwell. I'm a publicity expert and the author of I Wish I'd Known That, Secrets to Success in Business from Women Who've Been There. I've been working with small business owners and entrepreneurs since 2001 to help them to create a public presence. And I've learned that not everyone needs to hire a publicist and not everyone needs a full-time public relations firm. But what they do need is a good plan. And because I work primarily with entrepreneurs, they're often capable of implementing their own PR, but they have no way of knowing of where to begin to create their plan. And that's what we're going to talk about today. When I begin working with a publicity client, the first thing we do is sit down across from each other at a table and we just talk about them and their business and what their goals are. And really one of the first things that I need to ascertain is, are you ready for the media to call you? Because some people just are not ready, and that becomes the first part of our plan. Your marketing materials and your publicity materials are not ever finished. You're constantly creating them and expanding and improving. So it's not always necessary to have everything ready before you start with your publicity, but you do need to have a few things. I want you to imagine with me that picture a television station sitting, the producer and the news director and the reporters and the anchor sitting around for their 10 a.m. meeting, and they're planning the 6 p.m. news. They decide what they're going to focus on that day. And let's imagine that it's your topic, the thing that you're a specialist in. Will they know to call you? Will they know where to find you? They need somebody quick. Maybe they need it for the new news and it's 10 a.m. Will they know how to find you? And if they do find you, will you be ready to talk to them? Well, it's my goal to have everyone listening to this recording absolutely right on the top of the list of the reporters and absolutely ready to go. So again, your media list, we'll talk about your media list in a little while, but also your media kits, which is the tools that you provide to reporters, producers. They're never finished. But you know what? We have to get them started. And once we get a few things ready, then I say, hey, it's okay to go ahead and start putting yourself out there. Here's what you need to have before you even start a publicity plan. You absolutely must have a business card, a professional business card with complete contact information, including your website, including your email. I prefer that you have a business card with your photo on it because it really begins that relationship when someone has your business card. If your business card has incorrect information on it, please don't scratch out the incorrect information and put on a new email address or a new website. Business cards are so affordable these days. Please take those old business cards that are no good and recycle them and order some new ones and have them have your complete contact information on them. You also need to have a flyer or a brochure. And that flyer or brochure needs to be available both in print form and electronic form so that it can be downloaded on your website. People are now ecologically conscious and they don't want to print a lot of forms, and we don't need to. We do a lot of business on the internet. So some people have no brochures. You need to still have a brochure that talks about who you are, what you do, what you specialize in, and what you offer. And you absolutely must have that on your website. Or if you don't have a website yet, you need to have it so that you can email it to someone. You absolutely must have a professional photo. Imagine that your daily newspaper called, or even a national newspaper called, to get a quote from you on a topic that they were doing. It'd be great to have your quote in their publication, but what if it was next to your picture and it said your name and the owner of your business? They're not going to put that picture in their publication, though, if it's a picture that your husband took of you in front of the kitchen sink. It has to be a professional photo done by a professional photographer. And ideally, you want to have more than one shot, because if you're working with me and I'm doing your public relations, I want to have you in many different publications. And we don't want to look at the same picture over and over again. Let me just talk a little bit about your photo. If you have a very traditional job, such as you're a financial planner or you're an attorney or you're CPA, then of course you need to have your professional photo with you in your business suit. But if you have a non-traditional job, such as you are an interior designer, or you're a publicist, or you're a realtor, or perhaps you are a nutrition counselor, or even a professional trainer, you can have a very non-traditional photo in the clothes that you wear to work, or something that shows your personality. I work with a professional organizer, and she's just a big fan. She's a pet lover, and she has her pet, and her pet photo is in one of her professional shots. We have one traditional shot of her and then several non-traditional. So you don't have to be really strictly professional. You can really show yourself in your photos. So you want to have, again, business cards, a flyer or brochure in printed and electronic form, your professional photo, and finally a professional bio. And a professional bio being short for biography, would be something that tells a little bit about you, who you are, why you're an expert. It will have your photo. If you do speaking, it will have your speaking topics that you do on it. Some people also call this bio a one sheet. And people are getting away from having resumes now and more into having a bio, particularly if you're an entrepreneur. So you absolutely must have those 4 items: your business card, your flyer, your photo, and a professional bio before I will even put out a press release for you. Now, ideally, I would like you to have that plus a professional looking website. And websites are affordable now. They don't cost what they used to 5 or 6 years ago. Almost anyone can get a website. There are lots of templates even for the do-it-yourselfers. But I caution you, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, I want to make sure that website looks really professional. We don't want to have a producer of a television show or a radio show going to your website and having it look, like somebody from high school developed it. So be careful on that. We want it to be professional looking. Spend a little money on that and have it look really, really good. Ideally, I'd also like to see some copies of articles or tip sheets that you have written, either that have been in print or that have just been used in an e-article, an e-magazine, or a newsletter. I'd also like to see all of my clients have recordings, both audio and video recordings. These should be available for download on your website, and I'll tell you why. It's very, very important that news producers, radio producers, and television producers hear how you sound and often see how you look before they're going to call you in order to ask you to appear or to pipe in on one of their shows. In addition, perhaps it's a written reporter that writes for the newspaper or writes for a magazine. They can listen to these and they quote you. So it's really great to have that. You want to definitely find a way to get some audio and some video on your website. And again, that's ideal. You don't have to do all this right away, but that's something I really recommend. In addition, we want to have a listing of your awards and accomplishments. And we all have them. If you're a business owner and entrepreneur, I know you've accomplished a lot before you've gotten to this point in your career. You want to have a listing of awards and accomplishments. If you don't have any awards, it's time for you to get with a buddy and start nominating one another for awards so that you can be given awards which are noteworthy and which are a reason for somebody to write a story about you. Now, having all of these items on the list that I just talked about is a complete media kit, and it's ideal. But depending on your business or your organization, you may or may not need all of this. Items that you do have should be available to be sent by email and regular mail, depending on the type of reporter that you're working with. Now, if you're starting from scratch, if you have absolutely nothing, I'm going to give you some ideas. For example, you want to start with, if you don't have any articles, again, start with a tip sheet. You can share that tip sheet with your community magazine, your community newspaper, or even your Chamber of Commerce newspaper and have it published. You can also start with an email newsletter if you don't have one. You can start by making an announcement about your business, and that can be your first press release. You can begin doing some public speaking on your subject of expertise. You can do some joint ventures. Joint ventures when you get together with a partner who is a non-competitive person, but you're looking for the same audience. So for example, if you're in the wedding industry and you make wedding cakes, a florist is an ideal person for you to get together and do a joint venture with. So maybe you want to start a newsletter and you're going to talk about the best wedding cake and the best types of wedding cakes and the newest trends in wedding cakes. You can also have that florist talk about the same types of items, or maybe how to save money and planning for your wedding with flowers and that type of a thing. So you're doing something together where you're going after the same audience, but you're not competing with one another. I often recommend that people do joint ventures and having community events. That's a great reason for a press release, a great reason to create media buzz. Also even doing fundraisers for nonprofits. I do work with a travel agent here who specializes in honeymoons, and we put her together with a florist and a bakery cake person, and they did a fundraiser where they collected old used bridesmaids dresses and they gave them to a prom organization. It was a really cool tie-in thing. It was a great publicity thing to do. You can also do a teleseminar or a recorded interview. You can do that with a buddy, something like that. That's going to give you some recordings that you can use. Now we're going to talk about creating your plan. Once you have your media kit ready, you need to create your plan. And before you create your plan, I want to explain to you the process of media coverage. Now, of course, there's always exceptions to all the rules, but there is a typical process of obtaining effective media coverage. There's actually a way that it happens. Typically, when I'm working with a client, we start by getting them some media coverage online, on blog websites, on email newsletters. We take something that's pretty easy to get you included in. The next thing would be a trade magazine. I mentioned before a professional organizer. They have the National Association of Professional Organizers. If you're in the medical field, if you're a registered nurse, they have organizations that you can join on a national level, often the kind that certify you. Those organizations have newsletters that they put out, and they're always looking for great content. You can take a tip sheet, an article, even an announcement that you've received an award, and it's very, very easy to get featured in these online e-zines, online websites, or in the trade or alumni magazines. Your alumni being your college that you graduated from. Often they have magazines, newsletters. They're really looking for content. If you have something well written and you send it in to them in a timely manner and it looks good, it's going to be easy to get that printed. Then what you do is you take that and you show it to your community newspaper or your community regional magazine, and it becomes newsworthy because you've already been featured in something. Now, who reads these community magazines other than your neighbors? Your local news producers and your local radio producers, they look through these to get leads and to get ideas. This is where they get, people don't just sit in a room and say, what are we going to put on the news today? They're looking at the outside media to give them ideas and inspiration. A local newspaper would be next. So you have your community magazine. So suppose you get featured in your community magazine, you can then take that article, and it's so easy now because we can do this all by email. Forward it to a local reporter who specializes in that subject and say, I thought you'd be interested in this. It was featured in the community magazine. And the next thing you know, you begin to establish yourself as someone that they can call on when they need even just a comment, and even better when they need a feature article. Who reads the local newspaper? Usually it's the guys who come in on the radio first thing in the morning, the producers, the men and women who come in the morning, and they have to get some content in. There's a lot of talk radio and a lot of news radio on the air from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Those guys come into work around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and they're reading the newspaper, and they're looking through the newspaper, and that's where they're getting ideas to use on their talk radio. So I have had more than one call at 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning from a producer asking me if they could have a client on their show at 7 a.m. if I could get them ready. And nowadays we do this all by phone. 10 years ago in the old days, people had to go into the studio, and things are so much easier now. And I had one of my very first clients on the radio. He was a health and fitness expert. And one morning, and it was really early in the morning, I think it was 5 or 6 a.m., somebody from Kansas City, Missouri called. I had sent out an email an email to several radio producers, and somebody had forwarded it to him, and he called and said, I really need someone to comment on weight loss. Do you think he'd be available? Now, this particular guy really wasn't looking for any clients in Kansas City, but we did take that and we put on his website and said, as featured on, and we put the call letters of the radio station, and we had a little bit of that recording, just 2 or 3 minutes, a little piece cut out of it. But so no, he wasn't looking for clients in Kansas City, but you can bet that the clients in his hometown, when they went to his website and they saw that, it just really cemented that he was a great guy for them to work with. So the publicity is good, even if it's not in your hometown. Okay, so the radio, you get on the radio, it's a step-by-step process. Who listens to the radio? That's the local TV people. The local TV people who are doing that 9 a.m. show or the noon news or the 5 o'clock news. A lot of times they're connected with the radio station, and they listen to who's on the radio in the morning when they're on their way into work. And they get their ideas generated that way, as well as many other. So the local TV then might have you come in and do a piece. And I'll tell you a great story. I have a travel agent that I work with. You can check out her website. It's Bella Vacations. www.bellavacations.com. And when we were creating her website, we put some tips on her website. And one of the tips was how to pack light, how to pack a suitcase, just have one carry-on. And a little over a year ago, they announced that the airlines were going to start charging $25 for carry-on bags. I heard it on the noon news. I immediately went to my computer and I pulled that tip sheet off of her website. I copied and pasted it into an email, and I sent it to a producer that I know, because you develop relationships with producers as you're in the business for a while. And I said, hey, look at this. The airlines are now charging $25. There's this woman in town. She's an expert on travel and packing light. Here's an article. They had her on TV the next day on a local morning news show. So she was just on there for 2 minutes, but you can bet when somebody was looking for a travel agent and they saw that little clip of her being on the news, it makes her better and more established in what she's doing. So it was really great. So now from your local TV, what happens is, have you ever seen on television pictures of CNN or ESPN where you have people sitting and there's like a wall of televisions? Well, that's actually true. That really happens. At CNN and CBS and NBC, they actually have people, and I don't know if they're interns or if they're well-paid employees, but they are paid to sit and look at those TVs, and what those TVs are showing them are local news stories from all over the country and all over the world. And that's where the evening news and the CBS morning show and the Today Show, that's where they're getting their leads and their ideas from stories all over the country. So local TV then leads to regional and national TV. And we also want to talk about national magazines. National magazines such as Good Housekeeping or Sports Illustrated or Newsweek or Time, they get their leads from a lot of places. You can write to them on their websites, and a lot of people do. But so suppose you sat down and you wanted to be in Time magazine. We know everybody wants to be in Oprah magazine. But let's make it more reasonable. Time or Newsweek are a little easier to get into because they're printed weekly. So you go to the Time magazine or the Newsweek magazine and you submit something and say, I'm really an expert in this and here's what I like to give you. And you tell them something. Well, that's really nice. But if you tell them something and then you say, by the way, I was on the local news here last week and I talked about this, and here's a link to that recording. Don't you think that those news directors, reporters, editors are going to look at that a little differently? So there is a stepping stone to that. And by the way, I will tell you about Oprah. I've never been on Oprah. What I do doesn't require me to be on Oprah, but almost all of my clients want to be on Oprah. The folks on Oprah, those producers, they will not even talk to you unless you've had previous experience. Because you know what happens? People get to Oprah and they look into the lights and they stutter because it's their first time and they've never known what to do. So they want you to have a little experience. And so do you. You don't want to get onto a national television show for the first time and look into the bright lights and begin to stutter. You want to have some experience. Go ahead and get your experience and get your feet wet in your local town, on your smaller news stations, so that you know what you're doing. Now, with this in mind, we've talked about having your media kits, and we've talked about the stair steps, if you will, to publicity. Let's begin to create your personal publicity lists. People think all the time that I have this huge media list with all these contacts, and I really don't. Each client that I have has their own personal lists that is specifically developed to who they are, what they're doing, and what their goals are. So I don't have a big list. I have a lot of little lists. Now, when you're creating your own personal lists, this should include between 5 and 25 media contacts, depending on your type of business and your personal goals. I want to tell you right now, this is not a one-time task. You need to always be updating and improving your lists. People don't stay in one job forever. So if you got one contact at the newspaper, that person is probably not going to be the same person in 2 to 3 years. People, my family, I drive them crazy, but when I'm out and about, I'm always picking up newspapers and magazines and community magazines because I like to read what's in them and see who's in them, and I will take somebody who writes on a specific thing, somebody who does book reviews. I'm always looking for those contacts, and I'm always developing relationships with those contacts, and it's always changing. Publications come in and go out and change hands and roll over and go out of business. The same thing with bloggers and microbloggers, and now we have podcasters. These things are changing all the time. So not a one-time task. Please don't think that you do it once and it's done, because that's just not the way the world of publicity is. But you want to start with 5 to 25 media contacts. You want to begin with your alumni, if you have an alumni, with your trade magazines, if you have that. Add on some of your community newspapers or magazines. Now, when you get into the newspapers and magazines, you don't want to ever have the contact person that, let's just be the editor at. You want to find the person who specifies in what you talk about. It might be lifestyle, it might be sports, it might be health and fitness, whatever it is. You want to find the reporter that specializes in that, and you want to send your things and contact directly that reporter. Okay, we don't ever just send to editor at. We find the right person. Make it as easy as possible to get to the right person, because believe me, they have a lot of people trying to get them. When you're creating your list, right now, email is the preferred method of contact for most people. But please create a complete list. If you're going to do it right the first time. Get the media contacts, first name, last name, phone number, address, email, fax, all that kind of thing. Just because if they would say to you, can you fax this to me? You can say, oh, sure, I have your fax number right here. Right now, email, but you don't want to have just first name, company name, and email. You want to have a very complete list. Believe me, save yourself later and have all the information the first time. So definitely you want to have an email list, certainly, because that is the preferred way of contact. Now, local newspapers and magazines, reporters in the correct department. You want to have your chamber, your membership, your alumni organizations, your alumni publications. You also want to have a regional newspaper and magazine, your local radio producers, and your local TV producers. And, this is something that you just have to do the legwork on. You have to make a phone call or go to their website and figure out who it is and figure out who the right person is. After you get that, you want to get the regional and national magazines if they are specific to your industry. Obviously, you don't want to be in Architecture Digests, if you're a personal trainer. Okay, once you get the regional and national magazines that are specific to your industry, think about online groups that you are active in. Facebook, LinkedIn, even Yahoo and Google, they have groups online of people who are like-minded, professional organizers, professional trainers, professional publicists, wedding planners. They have groups of people that get together, and if you don't belong to any, I recommend that you get in there and join. You would add those to your media list. Viral marketing meaning online, and they call it viral because it can go crazy really, really fast. That can be a great way to get the word out for you. Okay, so in your handout, you have some brainstorming time and some notes to go through, and just jot down some names of your local newspapers, your alumni membership, the blogs, radio producers. I want you to take that handout and just begin to write down some shows that are coming into your mind, some magazines or some newspapers that are coming into your mind. And from now on, I want you to always have that on your radar, looking for places that might be interested in your story or your tips or your input, and just always be building that. So what I want you to do now is write down some of these things that are coming to you, and then you can research them later and get all the contact information. Now that you have your media list ready to go or in process, Let's talk about your media plan, your actual publicity plan. How are you going to do this? Every business is different. It might be weekly. You might be sending something out weekly. You might be doing it monthly, and depending on your business, it could be seasonally. How often do you want to put some information out there to the media? Let's think about your business. Does it operate seasonally? Does it operate year-round? Do you have highs and lows in your business? You want to consider this when creating your business, and let me give you some examples. If you are in the fashion industry, your industry is already set to go seasonally. So you want to put out your plan seasonally, winter, spring, summer, fall, whether it's makeup or clothing, the trends, that's just the way your industry goes. So you want to think about wrapping your media around what's already going on. Suppose you own a farm and you have pumpkins and apples. Obviously in September, October, November, you're so busy you don't even want to think about publicity. But you know what? That's when you need to be out there in the media. So I'm going to recommend that you plan your publicity in February and March when you're not doing anything before you get out there to the farm. And then you have somebody implement it for you when you're really busy. I have a really good friend that she and her husband own a paintball park. And boy, in the summertime, they're so busy, you don't even see them or hear from them. They do their publicity plans and their marketing plans in the fall. That's when they sit down, when they have time to breathe, and they plan it all out. But they have it right on their calendars. This is what we're going to do in June. This is what we're going to do in July. So they're not planning it at that time when they don't have time to do it. Now, suppose you're like me, that you're a solopreneur, you're maybe a coach or an author. You pretty much work year-round and you pretty much want clients year-round. You need to take time and set time aside into your business planning to talk about your publicity and think about something that you can put out every month. I think for most people, weekly is probably a little bit too much, depending on your business. I know maybe if you're a very large restaurant, you want to do something every week with a special. But for most people who are solopreneurs, once a month or even once every 2 months, I like once a month. And I like to sit down with people and say, what can we do this month to say something about you or to give a tip about you or to put the word out about you? I like once a month for most people. But again, we all have busy months and non-busy months. So just a simple plan that you have in place so that even during your busiest time, you can go ahead and implement something. Once you have your plan and you have your contact list, it's a lot easier. Now, you're also going to want to have great marketing materials in order, and you want to be able to take advantage of a PR opportunity whenever something happens of interest in the news. I mentioned before my friend who was the travel agent. That was great because we were ready for it. Now, simple press releases are not the only way to generate interest. We're going to talk now about press releases, which is the big thing about public relations. But, press releases are used a lot nowadays, especially with email. They're easier to get to reporters. Besides press releases, I also use announcements, articles. I will do polls with some of my clients. We'll do a poll being when you ask a lot of people, and it has to be a minimum of 100 people. You ask a lot of people interest on a hot topic, and then we send that to the media and we say, certain company did a poll today and these were the results of the poll. It doesn't have to always be a press release. You want to think a little bit out of the box and make yourself a little bit different. Another thing that I do that I love to do is called event working. It's something that I came up with. As far as I know, I'm the only one who has actually marketed it that way. But event working is when I will have 2 clients get together who are non-competitive, and as I mentioned before with the wedding, and we'll have an event, a fundraiser or a community event, and it's not about your business that day. It's about the community event. It's about the community. It might be about sharing. Suppose you're a financial planner and you want to get together with a real estate agent and an attorney and you want to talk about home buying tips. It's not about selling yourself that day. It's about giving the community the home buying tips. I have found that is a very affordable way to get the word out there about your business and to get people to find out about you. And that's what I call event working. It doesn't always have to be about press releases. So keep that in mind, okay? Now, when you do a press release, I don't always call it a press release because I find that I've been into the TV studios and I see their fax machine and I see their printers and I see all of the press releases that come off. They all look the same. They all say press release at the top. They all say the date right next to it. There is a traditional formatted way to do it, but I like to make mine really colorful. And instead of putting press release at the top, I might put media announcements because I'm not sending this just to the press. I'm sending it to online, I'm sending it to TV, I'm sending it to magazines. And instead of putting the date, for example, if we put the date of January 1st, 2010, and somebody doesn't get around to reading that till January 16th, they've got a big pile of 200 press releases on their desk. They look at the date and go, oh, it's too late to read that, and it goes right in the circular file, right? Or right into the shredder. So what I will do is I will put on there a time. I might put for use between January 1st and March 15th, 2010, depending on what the topic is. Suppose you're a landscaper and we're talking about spring gardening tips. Doesn't have to be just good on January 1st. Is that what you get what I'm saying? And so make it a little bit easier for you to be used, okay? So when you do your press release or your media lists, make it a range, or your media announcement, make it a range, okay? In your handout, I've included a couple of sample press releases for you. You can take those sample press releases and just take them and remove my information and put your own in to get yourself started. And it also shows you at the bottom how you end them. And please, 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 not just on your press releases, but also on all of your marketing materials, and especially on your website. Your contact information, your name, your phone number, your email, please make that very, very easy to find. You know, as I've said many times, these reporters and producers and news directors are inundated with information, and they need to cut it down some way. And if they can't find your name and phone number, that's one reason for them to put aside your press release. So make sure your information is easy to see, easy to find, and please make sure you're easy to reach. A couple of days after sending a press release, put your cell phone number on there. Make sure that you answer it. Don't make them work to find you, okay? I want to give you some tips for when you do send press releases. Number one, always be polite and don't be pushy. Don't ever give someone a call or send them an email and say, you really need to interview me, because no, they really don't. So this is not the time to be pushy. Be polite, be helpful. If you see an article in a magazine or a newspaper that you really, really like that happens to be in your field, it's perfectly appropriate to give that reporter a call, send them an email and say, hey, I really appreciated that article. It's really great to see my industry being featured in the news. I am an expert in blank, blank, blank. And then if you ever need any support, if you're ever writing a story on that, I'd be happy to be a resource to you. You would never want to send a reporter an email that says, hey, I was really appreciative to see your article today, and I am a specialist in this, and if you ever need siding on your house, or if you ever need a new deck, you should call me. You don't want to do that, because they're never going to call you. Remember that newspapers and magazines and television shows, their job is to give the public great content, and they want to be very, very competitive in giving that great content. It is not their job to sell your products. If you want to sell your products on their publication, then buy an ad, and that's what they'll tell you. So you want to position yourself as a resource or as a support to them. Never send out a mass press release. So in other words, if you have 25 people on your media list, you don't want to open up an email and put in the to subject all 25 email addresses. Can you imagine? They don't want to put the same story in their magazine as their competitor does. So don't do that. Actually take the time and make each email or each letter or each fax, however you're going to do it, make it personalized. You know, dear John Smith, here's my information on packing lights. Today, the airlines announced that they're going to be charging $25 per bag. I thought this would be great information for your readers. Okay? Personalize each one. Always begin with a comment or a compliment. Don't begin it with a request. Can you please feature me? Would you like to do a story on me? You don't want to do that. Begin with a comment. Begin with a reason why you think that you're a good fit. 3 or 4 is the magic number of times. If you email somebody 3 times or you call them 3 times and you haven't heard back from them, chances are it's not a good fit. They're too busy to call you back. Don't become a nuisance at that point. Just assume it's not a good time, and if something else comes up, you can try them again with something else. Don't be a nuisance in that way. When you're sending an email, do not attach things to that email until you're requested, unless you have a relationship with that person already. That's just another reason for them to delete it. If you send them an email with attached is, or if you'd like to read this, it's attached, well, it's you have to understand these people may have 150 emails that they've received that morning. So make it as easy for them to find you as possible. Have that content inside the email. And then you can say, I also have a PDF, or I also have photos if you'd be interested in seeing them. Okay? I hope that makes sense to you. When you do get to the point of sending attachments, when they ask you for more information, don't send your files in PowerPoint or Works or WordPerfect or Photoshop, because not everybody has this software. And they're most likely not going to take the time to email you and say, I can't open this. Many people now have a very advanced version of Microsoft Word, and not everybody can open those attachments. And also, some people use Macs. Now, some Macs can look at Microsoft Word and some can't, but you know what? PDF is the best thing because that's universal and everybody can see that. So take the time to turn your document into a PDF. If you don't know how to do that, it's very simple. Just go online and Google, how do I make a PDF, and you can figure that out. But again, always making things as easy as possible for the reporter. Like I said, Word is fairly common, but don't assume that everybody has Word or has the same version of Word that you do. If you're using Word, just go into your Word document, copy, and paste that information right into your email. Oh, let me just tell you this. This is such a pet peeve of mine. Please sign your emails completely. Don't just sign them with your first name. Don't just sign them with your first and last name. Your first name, your last name, your company name, your phone number, and your website. Make it easy. Don't just do that for reporters. Do that for everybody. Just make it easy for people to find you. We all have too much to do right now. We don't need to be trying to figure out what your phone number is or where you work or try to remember where we met you. Okay? Don't be afraid to be colorful when you're sending an email. It doesn't have to be in black and white. When we were sending everything by fax, or when it was really expensive to print things, we did everything in black and white. You don't have to do things in black and white. You don't have to follow all the rules anymore. You can make it colorful, make it very attractive, make it stand out. Try to keep your press release to one page, if possible. And I do that sometimes by widening the margins on the paper. If I'm at like a 1 page and 2 lines, I'll widen the margins of the paper or take out a line or two. If at all possible, keep it to 1 page. If you have to go beyond 1 page, at the bottom of the first page, you want to type more, M-O-R-E, in capital letters. And then go to the second page. And when you're done with your press release, always type END, E-N-D. And traditionally, we type the hash sign or the pound sign 3 times. That's the traditional way of ending it. You'll see that in your handouts. Okay, so wow, we've accomplished a lot today. We've talked about getting ready for the press to call you, having your marketing materials. We talked about the process of how publicity works. We talked about making your own publicity lists and your contact sheet. Talked about press releases. Now, here's the big question that everybody asks me. Well, what am I going to write about? What do I have to tell people about? Let me give you some ideas to just get you started. Think about your business, your company. Have you or anybody on your staff or any of your clients recently won an award? Awards are a pretty easy way to get started because there are a lot of awards that can be received. Think about that. That might be a good reason to write your first press release. Do you have a new product or a new service? Have you recently adopted a charity, or do you do a charity event on a regular basis? Do you have new staff? New staff is a great reason to put an announcement, and it shows that your business is growing. Another reason for you to have a great professional picture of you and your staff, sending that out to the newspaper, such and such business announces that so-and-so has joined them and will be handling this. People really enjoy reading that, and it begins to establish you out there. If you would like a free report called 101 Reasons to Write a Press Release, please go to my website, which is www.publicrelationsensation.com, and right there you can download a free report which will give you 101 ideas for you to think of to get started on to writing your own press release and to begin your own publicity kit. I hope you've enjoyed this workshop. I really want to see what happens with you in your business. So when you get some press coverage, please let me know. You can email me at Beth Caldwell, BETHCALD bethwell@comcast.net. And I really hope to see you in the press soon. Thanks.
We hope you've enjoyed this workshop and that you will begin working on your publicity plan right away. Beth is passionate about helping business owners succeed and keeping them up to date with the latest tips, tools, and technologies for success. She is the founder and host of the Monday Morning Mastermind program, a convenient mastermind program for busy entrepreneurs that meets via teleconference every Monday morning. For more information on this and other resources, visit Beth's website at www.iwishidknownthat.com. Thanks for listening.